Welcome to the Midlife Men podcast with me, Philip Briscoe. Today's guest, Erik, has lived through big midlife shifts, from ending a long marriage with mutual respect to rebuilding life in a new country, surviving a stroke and now building a new business at 54. His journey shows what it takes to live life at full speed in midlife, and Erik will be sharing the lessons about letting go, rebuilding, and how he's coped with the various different transitions in his life. So welcome, Erik.
Yes, Philip, welcome. Nice to be here.
Let's start by talking about, your midlife turning point. And you told me that after many years of marriage, you and your wife chose to separate. I just wondered how that started a process. How did you come to that process?
Yeah, obviously, it's something that, many couples go through at this stage. I'm 54. But ours was a bit different because it was not a case of us not being able to stand each other anymore. What was really happening was a realization on my side, especially that, look, I'm, maybe halfway through life. I always tend to count that I'm going to be more than 100, so I'm halfway in life. And I felt like there's so much more to do and so much more to give in the second part of my life. I was living in Indonesia. I had lived there for 25 years and decided that was no longer the place I wanted to live. I was living in Jakarta, which is a very busy, bustling city, but not the most comfortable place to live in the world. And I really, really wanted to change. I wanted to change from the scenery of where I was living. I also felt like I wanted to travel more. I wanted to see more of the world. And my partner is Indonesian, and she felt like her future was there. Her future was there in Jakarta, in Indonesia. She has a lot of family there, a lot of friends there, and that was one aspect. There were some other aspects in our relationship that were coming to a point whereby we felt like, look, my growth and where I want to be in life was very different from how she saw where she wanted to be. My children were moving to Europe because they were studying. So 2 of my kids are in the Netherlands and 1 is still in Indonesia. So I also felt like I wanted to be more here, more in Europe, and really starting some new things and starting to build something new. Now, it's a bit of a cryptic description, I understand, but I do want to protect her a little bit. We separated on really, really good terms, and that was quite unique because at some point we both realized, I think it is true that my view of life and my vision of where I want to take is very different from yours. And although it hurt and although it's painful and although we are both very sad about it, for me, and I think for her as well, it was the right decision at that point. So I left Indonesia about 3 years ago, on and off. I've been back a few times, and have now sort of settled down in Europe. Live in Spain at the moment, but it could easily be Dubai or it could easily be somewhere else. Right now, I'm very happy in Spain, and especially, Philip, the lifestyle here and the big contrast between living in Jakarta, the big city, and living here is here I can go out in the fresh air, in the mountains. I can go for a walk. I can grab the car. I can drive anywhere. Well, in the city where I was living, that was not really possible. So that's one of the aspects I really, really enjoy, and it's given me a lot of benefits in how I live, how I enjoy life, and also how healthy I feel. I feel much, much more alive here than I felt in Jakarta at the end, because it's a city that is very polluted and it's very compressing, I would say.
So it sounds like it was quite a calm and respectful process, perhaps different to how other people might experience, separation, and then your decision to leave and come to Spain. So what was it like after, all that time in Indonesia? And suddenly you're in Spain, and you were just explaining how, you appreciated different elements of living in Spain. But what did you decide to do when you arrived in Spain, and why Spain?
Yeah, well, I had a few stops in between. The natural thing for me to do was to go back to the Netherlands, where I'm from. So after leaving Jakarta, leaving Indonesia, I really went back to the Netherlands, spent a couple of winters there. And in the process of the grief of the separation and being on my own and experiencing Dutch winters with rain and short days, that really, really got me thinking about, hey, do I really want to live here? On top of that, something strange really happened because yes, I'm a Dutch national and it's my country, but after being away for 25 years, I was literally almost a foreigner in my own country. People's view of life and of living and lifestyle have changed in 25 years, and mine, of course, as well. Right, I'm living in a culture that is very different from a European culture. I had I had a different way of living, and coming back to Holland, where everybody's busy, where you have to plan appointments 2 weeks in advance, where people are on the clock, always busy, and really the depressing winters for me were like a choice. Like, okay, the main realization was, okay, I made this major change in my life. Would I now go and settle for something that doesn't totally fulfill me? And I basically came to the realization that no, I now have the chance and the choice to choose a life that is, redesign it from the ground up. So if I redesign it from the ground up and I've experienced life in the Netherlands, would I want to live there? Well, the answer was no. So I ended up going to Spain. My current partner also lives in Spain, so that was also one of the reasons to come here. But I really like Spain, and it's sort of Indonesia in Europe, because the Spaniards are very similar to Indonesians. They're very welcoming, they're very warm, they don't have a lot of money. The average income here in Spain is very low, but they live life every day, and they laugh every day. They have fun every day. They can live with little means and make life a little party, and I really enjoy that.
So you were around 50, just over 50 at this point, and
54, yeah.
You decided to make significant changes in your life. There'll be a lot of people listening who are around the same age and perhaps feeling more a bit trapped or unfulfilled in what they're doing right now. How you talked about why you did it, but what advice would you give to people who perhaps don't know whether they can make a big change, and not necessarily separating from a marriage or moving to a new country, but just maybe even smaller changes around career direction? How did you, based on your experience, what would you say is is key to that?
It's a very good question, and it's interesting because a lot of people that I talk to, they look at me and they go like, "Wow, that you can do that! Right? You can move away from there, move away from your wife, and move to a new country." And there's a couple of aspects for me that are really important. One, what I see a lot is that people are sort of location dependent because of their circumstances. If you have small kids that go to school, obviously that's a big barrier to go in and transport everybody to a different place. But you always need to think about, let's say, the limitations that are there are always self-created. The circumstances you find yourself in are always the result of your past decisions. So there's always a new choice, right? A new future is always available. You can always make new choices and create a different situation for yourself. And you have to really stress test the assumptions you're making, because a lot of people will come up, I can't do this because my kids go to school. Well, there are schools in Spain. There are schools in Indonesia. There are schools in Dubai. There's schools everywhere. So if you would want to, you could. Or the other argument is very often, well, but I have my job and my partner has a job. Okay. What if you set yourself out on a path for 5 years to get location independent, to find business online, to apply for a job that allows you to work remote? Because a lot of companies do that right now. Or start your own business. Maybe these choices cannot be done overnight, but they can be done. But if you thrive in your excuses, you will never move. But you have to really stress test those excuses. Are they really, really true? Are they true that you can't move? Like, I had a really big company in Indonesia for a long time. But due to circumstances, I started to doing more and more business online. I started to build a property business in the UK. But all of that was remote. And subconsciously, I think it was the start of creating a life of freedom, right? Because as soon as your money doesn't depend on the location, then you're really, really free. If you are in a job that requires you to go into an office or into a location somewhere, okay, I can understand. It's not that easy, but it's not impossible. A lot of things can change. And in 3-5 years, if you really want to, you can change that. You can find a way to make your money that is not depending on the location where you're at.
I think that's really important, actually, this aspect of, it's not going to be instant. You're not going to click your fingers because a lot of people live, to 2 or 3 paychecks, and, they don't necessarily have the ability to quit their job and go and try and find something to do the next day. So I think it's important what you're saying. You need a longer term plan, despite the fact we all want instant gratification these days. Be prepared for it to take time. And I guess also fear of perhaps making mistakes. What in your experience, do you need to make some mistakes to ultimately find out what you really want to do?
Well, I've become quite a spiritual person over the last, let's say, 5 years. I've done a lot of work on myself, and I believe a lot more in, let's say, signs from the universe. And if whatever you would call mistakes or things that don't work, these are just little, bumpers on the side of the road that basically nudge you back into a different kind of direction, right? So if something doesn't work, that's something to be grateful for because it's a nudge in the direction you don't need to go. So the ultimate trust that you will figure it out is one of the key principles of doing what I've done. And it's one of the realizations that, the trajectory that was sort of, planned for me or the outlook I had of where life would go has changed completely. But that comes with a realization that, okay, I'll figure it out along the way. And that is the beauty of doing something like this, because if you get out of the ordinary, extraordinary things will come to you. And they come out of the blue, and things will happen, and signs will show up, and new exciting things will come to you. The openness for these kind of opportunities doesn't happen if you stay within the grid of everyday life or within the path that you're set out to do. So my experience has been very positive about that, where yes, there's a lot more unknown. I had to figure out all sorts of things. I had to figure out my economic situation. I had to sort out how am I dealing with my health, and new relationships are a new experience for me, right? I've been in a marriage for 25 years, and now all of a sudden I find myself, learning to build a relationship with my new partner, which is very, very different and very exciting. But these things are the openness to the new is what makes this exciting. But it comes with challenges. It comes with things that don't work. It comes with mistakes. But that's all, like I said, these are the little bumpers on the side that basically, nudge you in the right direction for you, where you're supposed to go.
I think you've said the outer world follows the inner world. So is that what you mean when you say that, you respond to perhaps external influences in your life?
Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah, it's a Peter Sage saying. Peter was one of my mentors and my coaches. He's a fantastic personal development trainer. I work with him, and that's one of the things he says. So he basically says, "Yeah, outer world follows inner world." There are two aspects to that, which is the expression itself means that if you set the inner world of calmness, clarity, direction, you know where you want to go, you have a clear vision of where you want to be. And also you have a clear sort of picture in your mind of who you want to become, the person you want to become, right? I want to become a man that's independent and is living on my terms. That image and that picture of myself translate to the stuff that happens in my outer world. So the stuff that comes to me, the opportunities that come to me, the things that are coming on my way, the chances that are created. But it's also the other way around, which is, the universe, or however you want to call it, or God, or if you're religious, the universe is a very good teacher as well. And the outer world, like I mentioned before, gives you nudges, right? If things are getting stroppy or difficult or hard, have a look at it. Is it something that is basically trying to change your direction, change your course? That's very often the case. Like, life should be in flow for the most part. So it shouldn't be a constant struggle. If life is a constant struggle, you're doing something wrong. Either you're doing something wrong by what you're trying to achieve because it's not in line with what you really need to do or supposed to do, or you're basically just, you're fighting your way through life too hard. You're struggling too hard. If you're calm and if you're centered and if you know what you want, then that energy will bring you to a state of flow where things are flowing more and coming to you more. And also where the universe every once in a while just gives you this little nudge. Hey, go left, go right, go the other way. And that's part of it. That's part of the fun.
What if you don't know what you want to do? What if you know what you're doing now isn't it, but you just don't know? How do you move forward?
The thing you shouldn't do is let other people tell you what you should be doing. That's the first thing you shouldn't do, because they don't know you. They don't know who you are. For me, a lot of the answers of this come from cutting away the noise, because it's a bit of a cliche, but we're in a world where we're inundated with signal. It's getting more and more. Social media, TV, radio, other people's opinions, right? The good opinion of other people. Everybody is creating noise. And with that noise, you're trying to sort of listen to, okay, what's the most sensible voice to listen to? Or you're going on social and saying, what's the best way to make money? Or what's the best country to live in? That's all noise from the outer world. And the real answers of what you're supposed to do here come from the inner world. And it only comes from going into silence and going into calming the monkey brain, basically calming this thing in your head that is constantly running, constantly talking to you. And it sounds a bit woo-woo, right? It sounds a bit, you need to go kumbaya, you have to meditate. But in silence and in calmness and in reflection comes what you really are supposed to do. And the people in my world and my friends who've done this kind of work on themselves, they usually find the answers in the time that they really cut out most of the noise from the outside. And it can be meditation, but it doesn't have to be, you go to India for a week and you lock yourself up. No. But it comes from really taking the time to think and talk to the people, talk to a few people you really trust, either somebody who can guide you or your partner or somebody that knows you very well. Because it's funny, the courage you need to make changes, other people see that in you already without you seeing it. So my wife, my kids, my partner, they all see that I have the courage to do things. Sometimes I don't see it. And it's nice to hear from them. Well, actually, you have that in you. You could do something else. You actually can become a piano teacher or a personal trainer or, whatever you want to do. But the real answer of what you're supposed to do definitely comes from cutting out the noise for the most part, because the noise is making you confused. And if you say that you don't know what you want to do, yeah, but go inwards, I think.
And I guess, things like alcohol doesn't help. Doesn't help you have a clear mind or whatever else you're addicted to or just misusing. And I've talked to a lot of men actually who say that nature, being out in nature, even if it's just in a square, green square in a city, is also really important to kind of help you get to where you want to go to.
Yeah, get rid of your phone, get rid of the signal, get rid of the noise, for sure. And anything, the older I get now, the more I find out how bad any poison is for your body. And it's not only alcohol, it's sugar, it's carbs, it's too much eating, too little exercise, all these kind of things. If your physical body is not happy, it's hard for you to be happy in your mind, right? That's really difficult. So yeah, if I would challenge anybody who's drinking alcohol to just stop it for a month, because that seems like quite a long time because there's 4 weekends in a month. But I've done it many, many times now. I think I'm now again on my, 7 or 8 week of no alcohol. What happens in a month is there are two things that are happening. First of all, you'll realize how your body is cleaning out and how much mess there is in your body because of, regular alcohol consumption. And regular, once a week is even regular. Yeah? So that's one thing. And after the month, you start to realize this is actually easy. And you start to realize that actually it's not so much the not drinking, it's other people trying to force you to drink. That's the hard bit. But that's just one example, right? Try to cut out as many of these poisons from your body as possible, because that will give you a clear mind for sure. And it's, nature is, like you said, that's always, it's always great. And I love that here in Spain, right? The mountains are 2 minutes away. I can just walk into the mountains here, which is fantastic.
And so what kind of first got you into this sort of work, understanding your journey and, self-discovery. How did that come about?
Yeah, I've always been very interested in personal development and into the sort of invisible things that drive, the mind and the what you want to do. But I was a very analytical, logical person. And Peter Sage always calls me I'm a recovering left brainer. I'm still in recovery, meaning, trying to get more out of my analytical mind and more in my intuition side. Yeah, I mean, for me, I've done courses in the past of looking into myself, but once I started working, in this case with Peter Sage, he had a course that I took. That was a really deep dive into a lot of the spiritual side and how, an alternative way of looking at the world. And it made me really look inside and where I want to be as a person, as a man, as and I felt like I still have a lot of things that I want to do and want to give and want to build. And I have to start getting away from the thought that I'm getting old. We're all getting old, but that doesn't mean you have to do less or create less or have less ambition or, definitely not. So yeah, for me, it's been just a journey into being very honest with myself. I had other, guides and mentors and friends that I spoke to, and really just being open and honest about what's really driving you, what's inside and where you want to go in life.
And then 2 years ago, then you had a shock when you experienced a stroke. So what do you remember about that, and how does that fit into the story?
It's a physical example of inner world creates outer world, or outer worlds follows inner world, because that was the situation. Was within a week I traveled from Spain to the Netherlands, then from the Netherlands to Indonesia, where I signed my divorce papers. I sorted out all the things for the house and my partner and everything. Then I flew back to Amsterdam. Then I flew to Scotland, and then I flew from Scotland to Amsterdam, and then Amsterdam to Spain, all within, I think, 7 days. And it was a very emotional period for me. Obviously, it was really the time where I formalized my divorce, and I went back to Europe. And I came to Spain, and I basically was having a dinner there. And at the end of the dinner, I started slurring, and I was feeling pain in my leg and in my arm. And basically, the group that I was with basically drove me to the hospital, and I had a mild stroke on my left side of my brain. Very, very fortunate. It was a very mild stroke, so I had basically pain and difficulty of coordination in my right leg and my right arm. I couldn't write. I couldn't use a hand phone. They put me on some medication, and there I decided, okay, I'm not in this hospital as a stroke patient. I am in this hospital as a super athlete in recovery. So I literally was not in my my gown that they gave me from the hospital, but I was in my trainers and in my sports shorts and in my training outfit, basically walking up and down the aisles every day. And that mindset got me through this. And after 5 days, they dismissed me from the hospital, and I went to a physiotherapist a couple of days later, and she was Spanish, and she said, okay, so you're here for treatment for your stroke. I said, yeah, I've got one small problem. I had a, how do you call that? A jerking arm when I was at night. So like a spasm. And then she said, but wait a minute, you had a stroke 10 days ago. I've never seen anybody walking into the clinic 10 days after a stroke the way you walked in, because I basically, my problems were gone, except I had a few, minor issues. So it was a very hard reminder, and I do see it as a reminder to be careful, and I don't ignore the fact there was something wrong with me. There was something physically wrong with me. Obviously, I had a narrowing of blood veins in my brain that caused the problem. But I also am of the mindset that most of that was mentally induced. Most of that was because of what happened to me at that phase and that time. So I'm trying to stay away from stress. I'm trying to stay away from these things. And I work very hard on my health right now, much more than I did before. But it was definitely a wake-up call. And it was like, okay, life is not permanent. Life is not, it's finite. So it's a good motivation to go and get going, I think.
So do you think that, things like anxiety, stress, they have as much to play in things like strokes? Is it a wake up call for people, especially as they get older, to, as we've been saying, just to try and find peace and fulfillment in what they're doing, because it catches up with you?
It catches up with you, and there's another even more dangerous side to that, and that is that you can't let's say you've always been in a very busy job or career or business, then all of a sudden you sell the business or you retire. Statistically, that's the most dangerous time of your life, because that's when all these things are happening. I'm sure you have friends as well that have had issues at that point. The reason for that is because there is all this built up stress and anxiety and problems during the period before that then all of a sudden get released, because the adrenaline and the stress of everyday life is no longer there. That's the dangerous bit about it, I think, but I'm 100% convinced that has a major, major impact. And it's to avoid it, I think, is you have to realize on time that don't live in too much stress and anxiety for too long. It's really, really bad for you, and it builds up. It sort of accumulates over time. I don't know if that's a real answer to your question, but yes, I believe that has a major part to play in physical diseases. The healing of a lot of it also is in part due to how you mentally deal with these things. If you become very depressed because you had a stroke or you had a problem or you had something in your body, then it's very likely that induces more problems. So switching that back, saying, okay, like in my case, okay, I had this wake up call. I'm not thinking about, oh shit, I'm quite sensitive to having another one. Yes, I am, statistically. But what can I do about it? Well, I can eat healthy. I can not drink as much. Not been drinking for 8 weeks now. I can train my muscles. I can strengthen myself, and I can take time to calm my mind down regularly. I can do meditation. I can do ways and practices to calm the frequency in my mind. So I think that is yes, always get medical advice, always go to doctors. But most of this, I think, can be treated with calming your mind down.
And what do you think about trying to find, professional support from psychotherapists or counselors? I mean, did they fit into your journey, or, do you have experience of that?
Yes, there is definitely a place for that. And I think that profession, I don't have a lot of experience with it. I have worked with some counselors in different areas for short periods of time, a couple of sessions. As long as they, I think, work with you to change how you are on the inside, instead of, treating the behavioral sort of things that aren't working on the outside. It sounds a bit cryptic, but it's really about how do you change as a person on the inside for the most part. But I think, especially for things that are very disruptive in how you live life, or in relationships, or how you deal with others, or how you deal with yourself, for sure there is help. I would see them like as emergency care for the most part. But I think long-term mental health comes from being calm and balanced on the inside, and that takes a lot of work, and that you can't get that from somebody from the outside, I think. But I like I said, Philip, I'm not very experienced with the professionals in this field. One of the reasons for that, by the way, is interesting, maybe, but one of the reasons is because that profession in Indonesia is almost non-existent. It becomes better now, and obviously we have people online, but in-person counseling was very underdeveloped there.
Why do you think that is? Was it just a lack of ignorance around?
Yeah, it's still a developing country, and they try to get the medical care up to par first. I think the medicine side of things, and it's getting better. There's more mental support for people as well. But the marriage counseling that I have done with my ex-wife was in the Netherlands. It was somebody online, because I couldn't find somebody there that was doing what I think should be.
So, coming on to kind of what you're doing now, 54, you're building and creating businesses. I know that you are very interested in AI and consulting around that. Can you tell us a bit more about that and how you got into it and what you're doing?
Yeah, so the last thing I built sort of was, like I said, I mentioned Peter. Peter was one of my friends, Peter Sage, and I've built a business with him. We built a personal development training business for people to teach his material. And I really, really enjoyed building a company again. And when I came out of that, I've tried many, many different things in my life. I had advertising agencies. I had, restaurant Wi-Fi networks. I had mobile SMS services. I did various things with various kind of approaches. And I've been really looking around. And the initial thought I had after the work with Peter stopped in 2023 was I want to become a coach and a speaker myself. And I want to teach this material to other people. And especially, I'm very interested in the topic that you're really specializing in, which is, men in their midlife and helping them. And I think that's still something I want to do at some point. But I realized that I am more of a business builder than I am a coach and a speaker, even though I enjoy it and I love it. I love teaching people. But I am actually really good at finding the right people, putting people together and creating a system, a structure. So that's actually what I really enjoy, creating a mechanism and a system that creates products and makes things. So after a couple of years, I decided, okay, I want to do that in the AI space. And like now I'm working with my partner Laz, who is in Miami, and we're building basically a worldwide training business for AI. We love AI, and I think it's one of the things that I still get to experience in this lifetime. That's going to be one of the major disruptors on how the world works, and I want to be part of that. Computer era was there. I was there when the mobile phones came out, and I built a business around that. So this is undeniable. I think one of the major disruptors in the world. And I really want to make this accessible to small and medium-sized businesses to help them grow, because you can do a lot with it, and it can really help smaller entities and smaller businesses to get a really big advantage. And I'm excited about that, and we're building a company around that, and it's really nice.
So is it not just about the money? I mean, for you, is it more of a kind of creative outlet? Does it you said that you really enjoy putting businesses together.
Yeah, this is a trick question, because ultimately I think I'm a capitalist, and a lot of it is about, generating wealth and generating money. But I'm not a really wealthy guy, Philip. I'm doing well and I'm okay, but I've never made companies that sold for hundreds of millions. I'm not that kind of entrepreneur. But for me, I always want to do something that is of service and is doing something right. And I think we found that now, because initially we were like, okay, how can we sell tools and how can we charge things, but now we're like, okay, our real mission is actually to help entrepreneurs to get a real advantage with AI quickly, and really help small companies do what we do, because we use a lot of AI in what we're doing, and we're seeing all the effects of that. So the mission now is to educate and help small and medium-sized businesses grow with AI. And that is a nice mission. I like that, right? That is helping other people grow and do what we do. And we're going to put a program together. It's not expensive. We're going to just do, online courses and things. So we want to help as many people as possible with what's possible right now with AI. And so the money part is always necessary, because I think if you build a company that's not profit oriented, it's very hard for me to get excited about it and to have long-term commitment to doing it. So yes, in the end, we do want to make money with this, but the underlying mission is to serve other people.
So what do you think is the most important lesson that Midlife has taught you so far?
It came a lot earlier than I thought. So if you're in your 20s or 30s, you think you still have a long way to go. You don't. So wake up, make sure that you have a look at where your future is going, and are you happy with where that's going? So that's one thing. I think it came earlier than I thought. I still consider myself 25 years old, which is ridiculous, but It came earlier than I thought. The scary decision of making major changes turns out not to be so scary. So it always is easier than you think it is. It's always less scary and less traumatic than you think it is. And life on the other side of a big decision is very exciting and very freeing. And for me to experience the feeling of being free again is undescribable. It's like, okay, what are we going to do now? What opportunities are there? What more can we do? The main thing for me is I also downsized all my assets. So like all my properties in Indonesia, they're going to be sold. My ex-wife and I are going to share the proceeds. I hardly have any stuff anymore. So on purpose, I've lived a life now that's really as free as I can be and as light as I can be.
Thank you for listening to the Midlife Men podcast with me, Philip Briscoe.
Much time there is in life and how much joy there is to experience and how much opportunity there is if, let's say, obligations and clutter goes away.
That's interesting. We surround ourselves with possessions and assets, thinking that, accumulation is a sign of success. But you're saying the opposite, really. Diversify, or rather divest your assets and free yourself up.
I think if these are assets to make money with, I've got a lot of assets. I've got a whole portfolio in the UK of bricks and roofs and stuff like that. So I've got houses in the UK. But when I when I went back the last time to Indonesia to sort out my assets, my stuff in my old house, I was there. There was a whole room full of my things, all my books, my clothes, and my artifacts and whatever. There was loads of them. I would say probably like 20 or 30 moving boxes full of it. And I was there on a little chair sitting in that room looking at all that stuff in Indonesia. And I thought, so either I rent a container and I ship everything over to Europe, or I only keep what I can carry in a luggage every once in a while and I slowly bring it over. And it was really hard because I started thinking, okay, I'm going to call a shipping company. I'm going to bring it all over. And then I decided, no, I'm just only going to bring what I can bring in a suitcase or my kids can bring over every once in a while. So I chucked away almost everything in that room. And that's not for everybody. And I'm quite radical and I'm already not so attached to things anyway. But it makes me realize that what's really important for me are the connections I have with other people, the place where I live. I need to have a great computer, good audio equipment, lots of monitors to do my work because that's what I enjoy. But I can buy them wherever I am. I'm now in Spain. If I'm in Holland, I've got some setup there that I can use. But material things don't really matter to me. And it's been very freeing, and it sort of frees up your attachment to physical things. It was really a therapeutic experience when I made the decision to not bring anything over. And there's still things that I miss. The biggest thing I miss is my beautiful espresso machine, who's still in Jakarta, which was too big to put in a suitcase. So it's not like I don't like physical things. I do. But I can live on an espresso. I'll survive.
We're moving house at the moment, and I completely relate to what you're saying because we've got a lifetime of tut, and most of it is just that. It's been kept for quasi-sentimental reasons, but actually it's becoming very fulfilling just to get rid of it or take it to charity shop.
It's freeing, and my parents both are not alive anymore, and what you realize is that at the end of the day, your kids are going to go and have to throw it away. And that's what we did. It was really traumatic when we cleaned up my mom's house. Basically, in the end, we put is it called a skip? Like one of those, we put a skip in front of the house and we chucked almost everything away. It's like, okay, that's what happens to your stuff when you're not there anymore.
So let's just finish on then. And we have talked about this throughout our conversation, but for men listening to this, who are going through, midlife challenges, whether it's health scares or separation or unfulfillment. what's the first thing they can do just to, because it's a series of steps, isn't it? And you've already said it could take years. What's the first thing that they can do just to kickstart the process?
Yeah. And that's something that I don't think we have, I've sort of spoken about my journey and how I handled this, but I think the first big step in this is awareness, right? So a feeling of unfulfillment is a signal. So it's a signal with usually much deeper underlying causes. And the main thing is not to get stuck in it and to observe it. What we teach is you can take a different perspective on your own situation. And the first thing you need to learn is to go and take a higher perspective of your situation. So the analogy is a football game, right? If you're a player on the field, it's hard to see what's going on exactly on the whole field. If you're a referee, it gets a little bit easier. If you start sitting in the stands, you can see it a little bit better. If you are in the media box a bit higher up, you can see it even better. And then if you step in a helicopter and you fly all above the stadium, you can see exactly the game and all the things that are going on. So those two things are really important. Find a way to be aware about what's happening, learn or get some training on how to get a different perspective of things. Don't take yourself too seriously, but look at yourself as the player on the field and what's actually going on. And then initially probably get somebody or, somebody that can guide you through it, or some help with that initially is always really helpful, because you are not objective and nobody outside of you is objective, but somebody can basically paint the picture in a more clear way to you. I think awareness is the first thing. And then, if the unfulfillment is there, the real question to ask is, am I going to risk living the rest of my life unfulfilled? Or am I actually able to make some changes and create something that is a lot more fulfilling than the life I live now? I just spoke about that this morning with my partner, saying, look, it's been really difficult choices. To separate is really difficult. To be with somebody new is really difficult. But I'm, the end result of it, I'm actually really happy right now. I'm really fulfilled right now. And it's a different kind of fulfillment. And don't forget, people live a lot longer. I spent 25 years with my ex-wife. 50 years ago, 60 years ago, that was the life people had, and they would die after those 25 years. We are, one of the first generations that has so much longevity, whereby this issue comes up, right? We've gone through a cycle of 25 years with somebody. It's normal that there can be a decision to want something else. It's normal. And we are the first generation dealing with this because we're getting older. We're fitter when we're older, My dad at my age was really, really old. So these things all come into play. But I think, be aware of the situation, take this different perspective, get a little bit of help if you can, but create the awareness and don't dwell in the fact that it can't change. Don't dwell in, let's say, the considerations or the circumstances.
Thank you, Erik. And your living embodiment that you can do that. There is life to be had if you want to change in your midlife. Thank you so much for talking to us. It's been really fascinating. I'm sure people listening have really enjoyed it, and you've given them some great advice. So Erik, thank you.
Yeah, it was my pleasure, Philip. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Midlife Men podcast with me, Philip Briscoe. To help raise the profile of the podcast, it really helps if you can review the show, and please share it with your networks. If you have a story to share, then do contact me through the website mid-lifemen.com. Finally, there's now a book called Men Speak Up, Journeys Through Mental Health, which is based on the podcast and available on Amazon and other online retailers.